Okay, so right now we're going to launch into a more interactive kind of session. So I'm Malika, first of all, from the Catalyst Fund. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited by the energy, by the conversations, and by everything we have planned today. As we were putting together this whole day, we realized that there's just not enough panels and not enough speaking spots for everybody who has something really important to contribute and really important to say. So the idea of this panel is that we're going to have a bunch of chairs up here. All of them will have mics on them. And the idea is that we really develop a conversation. I'm going to ask a few questions. We have some folks who volunteered to be my guinea pigs. They'll start by answering the questions. They'll invite you to give your responses. When they feel like they've added what they wanted to say, they'll leave their mic on the stool. And that's an invitation for those of you who want to participate in the conversation to come up, grab a seat, grab a mic, and contribute your thoughts. My ask here is threefold. When you come up, to share your name and your organization, to be really specific and really concrete about the things that you're passionate about, the things that you see, the things that you know about in terms of opportunities and barriers, to leave your pitching and your talking points and your speech making for a different stage, right? We just finished pitches. This is now the moment for conversation and honesty and pragmatism. And that when you feel like you've shared the important thoughts you want to share, that you make space up here for other people to join, so that we are able to include as many voices as possible. So the three asks: your name and organization, be really pragmatic and concrete, and make space for other voices. And if we need to, we'll have space here for people to line up so that those of us that are up here recognize that there's folks waiting to speak. Any questions? No? This is super clear? Okay. So what I want to do is ask my guinea pigs to join me on the stage. All 5 of you. And the question, we're going to try and divide this short conversation into 2 pieces. The first question I want to ask is to this group of people and to all of you is, what are the things that you're really excited about, that you think are underexplored, underfunded, underrecognized in terms of the opportunities to build climate resilience? I invite you to talk about sectors, about models, about stages, about founder types, being really specific with the things that you see that excite you, and share with our audience. Yeah? David, you look ready to go.
I look ready to go?
Yeah.
Thank you, Malika.
Yeah, you want to grab a seat?
And I got a seat? Okay. I'll try not to fumble and drop. Oh, we're moving. So hi everyone, my name is David Del Ser. I'm with BFA, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer. BFA Global, I've also been part of the founding team at Catalyst Fund, and I am also now playing the role of co-chair of the CFAR Alliance, which is an alliance of a number of players that really care about innovation for adaptation and resilience. Players like FSD Africa, BFA, Catalyst Fund, PayPal, MasterCard Foundation, and several others. And I'm very easily excitable, so I'm excited about a lot of things. For example, just seeing this event today, seeing so many of us already, and sensing that this is a turning point, that this community is thriving, is super exciting to me. The other thing that I've been sleepless about, with full of excitement, is the dawn of the AI age, which just happened, I guess, a few months ago. I swear to God, I didn't prepare my talking points with ChatGPT. I thought about it, we didn't have time. But I think this arrives just in time, as we as a species have to tackle the most complex crisis we've ever caused. It is great to expand, augment our brains with a brand new technology platform that will change the world as much as the mobile phones did, or the internet did. So that's, I think, to me, extremely exciting. I think it's also exciting in terms of investment. That is the one area of the VC space that is booming. So if you have any AI spice in your pitch, that helps. And I wanted to not just talk dreamily about it, but actually start talking about concrete examples that you can learn more about in this conference, of how some of these amazing innovators that are here today are starting to use AI to make them better, to make their products better. So I'm particularly excited about two layers, right? One is, how do we make the amazing founders that we have here? We've heard a lot of calls for them to go faster, for deals to flow faster, for them to fly faster and save the planet. But what is the role of AI in helping these amazing founding teams deliver more, execute faster, right? For example, one of the programs we're involved in is called TECA, Triggering Exponential Climate Action. We launch startups, and we're announcing the second wave of these startups. We just did at Africa Climate Summit, and we're going to be injecting AI throughout to help plug the knowledge gaps that the startup founding teams have. Because think about it, if you have a team of 2 or 3, what sort of superstars you need to know about climate, which is a complex thing itself, about whatever community you're working in, biodiversity, because you also don't want to screw that up, right? Technology, lean startups, there's so many things you need to learn. AI can be definitely an augmenting thing for founders. You can code twice as fast your prototype, for example, with AI, which has some not so great effects that maybe Paul will talk about, but it definitely is great for startups, right? We already know some of the startups in the first TECA wave that are putting together contracts in Swahili by asking ChatGPT instead of paying a lawyer. So your money goes farther, right? So I'm very excited about what founders are going to do once they fully figure out how to put this rocket into their team, right? What is the role of AI as your co-founder, right? I'm very excited about us finding that out. The second layer, which is even more important in my opinion, is how do we use these technologies to build products so that we augment the brains of the low-income communities, vulnerable communities we really care about? How do we help them? I don't have a great answer. I think it's going to be a very fun and thriving journey to learn. But we already are seeing some of the startups, again, in TECA. One is called VUA, that you might see on a panel later. They've already put together an SMS gateway to explain their financial terms to fishers over SMS, talking to ChatGPT about the product they offer. So that's one way to help, sell your product better, explain it better. And this is an example that's already going, right? We already also have another panel later on one of the CFAR initiatives called Universal Climate Insurance, where we want to help every single victim of climate change or a climate disaster with some monetary support and some mental support and some crisis management. So what if we build an AI, a planetary AI, that will learn from all our different disasters so that we can help the next victims of the next disaster, right? So you'll hear that on a bit about that in another panel. So yeah, if anyone is excited about AI too, please come talk to me as you share. As you can see, I'm so excited I can even speak properly. Thank you very much, Malika.
You can leave your mic on your...
Here?
Yeah, you can
and
leave
and I go pick someone, or they...
No? You can just leave it. And okay. So now David's spot is vacated. I don't know where the feedback is coming from. So David's spot's now vacated. Our panel is going to continue, our dynamic panel. And as folks feel inspired, I welcome you to come grab the mic and join us up here.
Do I go next? Great. May Yego. I'm an investment manager within the investment pillar of FSD Africa. And from a financial markets development angle, I think what we're most excited about, I know we speak about, the big financing needed, but I think we need to acknowledge some of the progress that has been made. We've seen quite additional new funding coming into the sector. Ourselves, as the investment pillar, have deployed over 90. We've invested in Catalyst, Persistent, Kavango, and they themselves are looking to deploy capital of, I think, over 400 million into the climate space. So I think there is some progress. More actors, more players need to come into the space, but definitely excited to see that there is more capital being deployed into the investment space. And to add on to that kind of capital, it's very well thought and structured in terms of what exactly are the market gaps within climate it's trying to address. So I can give the example of Mexico, who's sitting next to me, and Catalyst that helped set this event. They thought about, there is still gaps and proof needed in that early stage kind of risk and the kind of capital that is willing to take the investment risk of proof of concept. So we're seeing more of that. There's a panel earlier this week at KICC that were discussing catalyzing early stage capital, and we had Delta 40 and Persistent, and all of them are really going beyond just the venture capital model and embedding within the model more thought about how do we really accelerate the sector. So they are coupling the early stage risk with venture building that then answers the other side of this equation is how do we drive more startups and investable transactions to really be able to capture the capital that is coming into the sector, and how do we ensure that these solutions, that the great solutions that have been pitched are moving from the startup, the venture space, and are really scaling and getting to the market with affordable, accessible products. Yeah. And then another point I'm excited about in the financial sector is how the blending of capital and the different financial instruments that we're seeing. So for example, we have InfraCredit that is looking at credit enhancement for infrastructure projects. We ourselves as FSD Africa, through our investment in Catalyst, we leveraged our capital from our digital innovation team to first set up Catalyst and support the intermediary to get to a point where it can absorb investment capital from the investment pillar. So how different pools of capital are coming together is another area I'm excited about, and how they're thinking through the different instruments to really fill out the gaps in the financial systems. In terms of barriers, I guess the barriers are not the opportunity. I think there's still some design work and structuring elements to think through how do we really understand the risks associated with climate, early stage investing. It's a nascent sector, growing sector, and how do we ensure that we are designing products, financial products, and even driving capital down to the bottom that is really benefiting the full scale, including the communities, that they can really tangibly see the value of the investments that are being made at the top level from ourselves down to the intermediaries like Mexico to the companies. So yeah, those will be the areas of where we can grow more. And local capital participation. I think it's not a challenge of climate, but it's a challenge of how do we get our own local capital in the continent to start participating in climate and deploying more and being part of the conversations as well.
Can you go? I think I'll go. I'm tired of sitting. Okay. I'm Shreya. I work as an investment associate at the Global Innovation Fund. Two things that I'm excited about. Firstly, because I work on the grants team, I'd like to know more about how can we scale locally led innovations through government pathways. The reason I say this is that the scale pathway for in India is very different to that for Kenya and in Ethiopia. Different government structures are weaker or stronger, and I recently learned that the Kenyan government has a climate change fund for county level governments, and it's going to be scaled across all 42 counties. So I'm looking forward to see what the priorities are and how we can channel our innovations through those networks and help them scale and be sustainable. The second area that I think is underfunded and it should be looked into more is having more institutional level of infrastructure for having governments to be ready for climate resilience. So one example from our portfolio is hyperlocal mapping at an affordable rate for governments and civil society organizations. And this is not satellite imagery, it is UAVs and street imagery that can basically tell you where buildings are, where the roads go, and it goes up to 5 to 10 centimeters. You can use this sort of data to benefit the public and plan for climate resilience. And an example for that is, let's say a hurricane is coming. You can use this data to determine the height of the storm surge, and the government can set up hurricane shelters in those elevated areas where they think the storm is going to hit, and that could hopefully save a lot of lives. Thank you.
Can I? I was just going to say, can I go next? Because my point is very related to what we just covered. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Shruti Sharma. I work as a program officer with the United Nations Better Than Cash Alliance. I'm based in New York. Better Than Cash Alliance is a partnership of governments, international development organizations, and companies, and we work with our members to help them transition from cash to digital payments. And I'll start with one thing that we are really excited about is our new workstream on climate, which we have been trying to discuss with our government members. And finally, we are looking to help our government members leverage and expand digital infrastructure to build climate resilience, especially in context of adaptive social protection and anticipatory action in humanitarian payments. And anticipatory action is exactly based on what you just explained about using geospatial techniques to have thresholds when a disaster is going to hit, and then government can be prepared in advance to transfer those emergency relief funds to the people. This results in cost efficiency as well as for the government and humanitarian sectors, as well as getting, more importantly, the timely payments to the beneficiaries and the users. So, but the risk that we see is that, and that's what I have been hearing even from the government members during Africa Climate Summit last 2 days. Firstly, there is a lot of climate financing going into the space, but it's not trickling down to the grassroots level. So that's the first key point that Ms. Pogolo also highlighted during her intervention in the morning. And then the second one is governments are not very well right now equipped in terms of knowing about all these new things on AI and the potential of innovation and technology that all of you are here working on. So maybe finding the right platforms and or partnerships like CFAR Alliance and Catalyst Fund here, which can facilitate this role, and us also in terms of international development organizations in raising awareness for the governments to understand how they can, for expanding these adaptive social protection systems, they can leverage some of the financial products and other innovation technology that you all are working on. Happy to have a chat with all of you in case you are interested. Thank you.
Thanks for that. My name is Paul. I'm the CEO of Shortlist. We're based here in Nairobi. We're an executive search and workforce development firm focused across Africa and on the startup and social impact worlds, particularly green economy. Before this, I spent about a decade as an impact investor, primarily investing in financial inclusion startups around the world. And over, we would make the investment, and then the problem immediately shifted to a human capital, talent, people challenge. So we started Shortlist to try to start to drive more human capital and talent into this space. And what I'm seeing right now in climate that gets me excited as an opportunity, but also a barrier, is that we're talking about huge numbers of financial capital that has to flow into the sector across Africa. I've heard 40 billion a year. I've heard 100 billion a year. I'm sure many of you have other numbers. If that is not paired with really thoughtful approaches to how we develop and connect and pipeline the human capital, the talent, the skills at all levels of organizations into this sector, a lot of this isn't going to work. And it's kind of an obvious statement, but I'm always shocked at how little comparative attention is brought to the talent side of the equation. A few things we're excited about that we're developing at Shortlist. We've been running for the last 5 years programs in partnership with the UK government, Global Energy Alliance, Rockefeller Foundation, and others to try to drive more youth into the climate sector. That's a mix of awareness-raising programs so that people know there's actual jobs that they should be thinking about and aware of. That's different ways of approaching vetting and assessments so that we can connect people better. And then actually sponsoring with wage subsidies some apprenticeships and things like that. If any of you we've been running those in clean energy, but we're now expanded into climate and green economy more broadly. So if anyone wants some free help hiring your junior teams, be in touch. We also are starting to think more about how do we channel the mid-career professionals that want to get into this space en masse. I think people are waking up around the world and across Africa and thinking, you know, having this climate moment, wanting to do something relevant and useful, and not knowing where to turn. So we're launching something in the coming weeks. We just launched a job board yesterday, but a number of other features that we hope can be a gathering spot and a hub for people that want to make that transition. There's a number of cool, I just saw Sella walk in from Jacob's Ladder. I know there's a number of cool like ambassador and fellowship programs coming online. How do we start to support those and get more people aware of those and channeled into those programs? We're also thinking about how to supply the senior talent, because I think that is a gap, particularly as we think about some of the project and the infrastructure investments that need to happen. One of the things we're working on is kind of like a fractional executive platform, where what we're trying to do is, as more and more professionals want opportunities that are project-based or that are long-term part-time, you know, CFO 10 hours a week, we're hoping we can start to create a platform that makes it easier for professionals to explore that kind of career, but more importantly for climate tech startups, for project developers to be accessing that talent in real time and as they're needed in a more affordable piecemeal approach. So this is an area I'd love to see. Obviously, people love talking money. There's a huge financial capital need. I really hope that we don't forget the human capital need. One of the things that is an issue right now, and I see Jasper from Dahlberg over here, we had a long conversation on this yesterday, but we don't know where the jobs are going to come from across the sector for more than like a year or two out into the future. We have a pretty good sense of the next 12 months in different markets, but we are severely lacking data on labor demand 3 to 5 years from now. And if we want to get that talent ready, now, we need to be starting now. And if you look at the US, if you look at the EU, there's very sophisticated models and data to be able to project a 3 million person shortage of solar installers across the EU by 2030. We are really kind of flying blind right now on what we need across Africa. And so I think one of the things, I don't think we're the firm to do it, but we're looking for partners who might be able to fund or do research, because I think if we start to be aware of what the problem is, we can all work together to tackle it. So happy to talk more human capital with anyone. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Hi, my name is Hitul. I'm Director of Investments with Mercy Corps Ventures. If you don't know us, then hopefully I can share a little bit. Happy to talk after. We're an early stage impact investor focusing on adaptive agriculture and food systems, inclusive fintech, and climate smart solutions. We've been around a little bit. We have a portfolio over 40. And right now what we're really excited about is the focus on building kind of solutions that are viable and sustainable. I think we all have probably done some of our after action review of the last 3 years in the market, especially if you're VCs, and how everything from valuations to other. But I think what really excites us is the refocus on what can really be long-term and sustainable building. I think we look at the reality of what the capital markets are, what they will probably be for the next 10 years. Similarly, that I don't think I can predict out that there'll be a robust IPO market, just like you're looking at a shortage of capital. And so I think what we're looking at is like, who's really wanting to be here and build around and really focus on the mass market. Because I think, to me, we say we're an impact investor. I think a lot of people are here for impact. But over just the last 4 or 5 days, people are still out there separating impact and scale. And I don't understand that, because when I look at 80% of where the population and the incomes are, they're in the same place that those consumers need the impact, right? So I just look at what would be a scalable business. And so I think that piece I'd really like to start changing and ask everyone that hears someone else separating, a founder separating impact or not, ask them if they want to scale. And if they don't, that's fine. Send them to someone with PE, but don't send them to me because I'm VC and I need scale. But else, I think it needs to be clear that we have to get this message out, because I'm still not seeing it out there. So anecdotal, it's not RCT. So I think the other thing in going to models is we've done a pretty deep dive in our thematic areas. Our theses are actually public, so they're going to be on our website. You can go find them. And what's exciting us is like going that second layer around precision ag. going into food systems. How do you do financing that actually reaches a smallholder without having to sell something to the smallholder? For 10, 15 years, going back to my Asia days, we've all put the pressure on the smallholder farmer. The person who can take the least risk has had to take the most risk and lose everything. And I don't understand why this industry even talks that way now. So I think we have to refresh that also. And it's along the food system and the value chain is what excites me, where we can all take the risk with that smallholder farmer, whether it's Cargill, whether it's an aggregator, whether it's a tech company. We can find a way. The technology is there. The AI is there. Blockchain's there. We have a Web3 person here from our team. Talk with them if you want to talk about it. But I'm not saying it's easy, but I think there's a way to de-risk that we all along the food system, not because we're nice people, maybe we are, maybe we're not, because we need it to work for the climate and for the environment and for the communities, right? And again, it's also because it's going to be the most scalable solution. It's going to be the things that the large aggregators and the OLAMs and others are going to look for. So if you're building something and you're not thinking about what they would need, then you're also not looking at your exit opportunity, even selfishly. So to me, there's a few reasons to really think about how we de-risk across the food systems. And under that, of course, there's a climate lens because food systems are very integrated with climate. So yeah, for us, that's a really exciting piece. Just yesterday, I think Amira was here today. She's amazing. I met Amira, who's doing precision ag and irrigation in Tunis and wants to come down to sub-Saharan Africa. So that's the next piece I'm going to talk about is the connective tissue in the industry. I think the connective tissue has gotten better, but I think we can all take on responsibility for making it even stronger. And that, I mean, from everyone who's sitting in DC and London and looking at it at IC fund-to-fund levels to people who are implementing and building and finding a way. Because I think what I heard a lot also along some of these places, or some of the other people who made the message or their message, is that we're looking to see how the blended finance can work. How can people know where their role is? But I think that requires a stronger connective tissue to me. And I know there's some siloing. It's natural. We're all different organizations, different mandates, et cetera. But I think we have to challenge ourselves and say, where am I going to build more connective tissue? Especially as an investor, yesterday we were talking like we need grants, especially for climate startups, to de-risk. Debt's not going to come in until they get enough balance sheet that they can loan with. So where's that connective tissue? How can I talk to someone else and say, here are the things we're looking at, so we can all hope to have, here's the thing we're looking at, where's the Venn diagram? But let's start getting that on the share pipeline. We all say it, it's hard, I get it, but I think I'm going to put the challenge on myself and hopefully all of us on that one. And then the barriers piece, and I'll end with this, is I'm still cautious, optimistic, I know I have to say that, about lessons. I'm not sure we always learn the lessons of the past as much as I think we'd like to. And I worry about co-benefits. I worry about us talking about just tech, and not like what the product is going to be and who it serves. And if you don't build a product that serves someone, then you're probably not building a scalable business either. So I'm not trying to separate the two, but I think the last 2 years, again, every deck is AI. This, I know you love AI, I got you. But AI, and the Web3 people, not one besides us, Web3 fund is here this whole week. So if you see them, call them out. Just saying. Right? And so where are you for Climate Week, right? They'll come next week for Ether Safari. So I think we have to literally be able to say, the technologies are there. We can work with them, but I think there's barriers on what the focus will be. And it does concern me that if we get lost in the technology, then we're not necessarily addressing the largest market.
I certainly wasn't expecting to be alone up here, so maybe you should say, or others should join.
Come up. Someone's got to disagree with me. It's my life.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Pallavi Sharekar. I am a senior advisor for adaptation in the Office of the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry. And really, it's been so great to be here because I think that this today in particular represents a critical, more concrete conversation. And I think you need both. I think you need both the political will that we've seen early on in this week, and then you also need the concrete solutions that all of you are actively working on. So, one of the things that I think this week in particular, and the summit in particular, has highlighted, and I think Minister Boglo said it well, that this is really focused on African leadership and African solutions that are here, that are already at work. And from our perspective and from the policy perspective, one of the things that we've been thinking about is what is the role of international finance in supporting this? And so 2 years ago, President Biden launched his emergency plan for adaptation and resilience, known as PREPARE, because we love our acronyms. We like to think that's a good one. And PREPARE really brings together 19 federal departments and agencies across the US government with a goal of helping 500 million people in climate-vulnerable developing countries adapt to and manage the impacts of climate this decade. And when we were creating PREPARE, a key focus was on mobilizing private capital and private sector engagement, not as a replacement for public finance, but really looking at how can public finance facilitate increased investment by the private sector as well as into the private sector. And why into the private sector? Well, it's particularly this conversation here that we're having on the importance of SMEs, in particular for adaptation, because I mean, anyone that works on resilience knows that to be effective, you have to be nimble to the context, the local circumstances, and the changes that you see month to month or year to year. And I think SMEs in particular are really well positioned to do that, but need to be better equipped to be able to manage that. So we've been trying to look at it in two different ways, and maybe I'll just talk about two specific examples and then specific opportunities. So one is through our funding for accelerators and incubators. So we're supporting the Global Innovation Lab that's managed by the Climate Policy Initiative. I think they have a representative, Morgan, in the back over there that you can talk to, with an adaptation window. So to every year have new innovative financial instruments that can get the support they need to be further developed. And we're really happy that Catalyst Fund was the winner of what I must say was a very competitive year in the Global Innovation Lab, and really represented, I think, a huge opportunity. I'm really excited to be able to support the Catalyst Fund through the lab. So that window will continue next year. The call for proposals for that should, I think, be launched probably this fall, probably in October, but Morgan will confirm. The second thing we're doing is really looking at how do we support local initiatives and locally owned initiatives. So one of the things we announced at COP27 was a $25 million investment into the Africa Adaptation Initiative's Food Security Accelerator. This Food Security Accelerator is really looking at the importance of, we're hearing, I think, and in the past panel we heard from, I think, both James and Anne-Marie, the importance of there being risk-tolerant capital, and as the US government providing public finance, particularly from the State Department, we do have that risk tolerance. We do have the ability to provide concessional capital in that regard. So we supported this Food Security Accelerator, which is looking to provide much smaller ticket sizes to help grow the SMEs that are focused on climate resilient food security solutions. So really looking at what are the climate risks that we're facing, what are the solutions we're going to need, particularly in the food system space. So that $25 million is now operational. The accelerator itself will be launching a call for proposals at the end of this month and looking to make their investments early next year. And then, 2 days ago, Secretary Kerry also announced an additional $20 million investment into this accelerator. So that brings our total investment to $45 million. So I really do hope for those that are here today that are looking for some more risk-tolerant capital that you reach out to the Africa Adaptation Initiative. Yes. No, please.
We're going to run out of time.
Oh, yeah, please.
I'm going to have to reserve the comments for later. I apologize. We're trying to catch up on time. So thank you, both of you, and thank you everybody who came up. Let me just close by saying that I think I heard 3 things from this conversation. One is that we're excited. I can hear from the energy outside. I can see from everybody in this room. There's people are in this room, in this space, in our community, are excited, are seeing the opportunity, are seeing ways forward. The second thing I would take away from this is that we're excited about a lot of things. like I think agriculture, we hear a lot about, but it's also all the spaces in agriculture. It's logistics, it's precision ag, it's new kinds of inputs. We're excited about tech, we're excited about talent, we're excited about different kind of funding mechanisms. Like there's a lot going on. And the third thing I would highlight is that with so much going on, making sure that we're learning the lessons, building the community, building that connective tissue is critical. That we're all circling around the same problem, the same set of users in many cases, the same set of barriers in many cases. So having these conversations, building these relationships, staying in touch is increasingly important. So I'll leave you with those three thoughts. Thank you again, everyone, and I look forward to continuing the conversation throughout the day.
How absolutely fantastic was that? So nice. Let's give them a real round of applause. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Super cool.